discuss Leon Panetta. He's former defense secretary, of course, former CIA director as well, under President Obama. Always good to have you with us as we walk through this. What I think is on a lot of people's minds is the fact that both India and Pakistan do have nuclear capabilities. What is your level of concern that either would turn to those?
Well, it obviously is a concern because they are nuclear-powered countries, and you never know how this thing could escalate. There have always been tensions between India and Pakistan. They go back to 1947, when India was partitioned into India and Pakistan. There have been several wars that we've seen take place in the interim. I don't think either Pakistan or India wants to go into a full-fledged war. But when you're in a game of tit for tat, and there's no question now that Pakistan will probably respond to what India did, there is truly the danger of escalation here, and that should concern everybody in the world.
As we look at this, President Trump has called this escalating conflict, in his words, a shame. He said he just hopes that it ends very quickly. Just remind us what the role of the U.S. has been, right, when it comes to this sort of long-festering conflict and concerns over this region of Kashmir, and also whether you see any circumstance under which America would intervene in any way.
Well, the United States has played a role in that part of the world. When I was director of the CIA, there were tensions that were rising between Pakistan and India. And the United States took steps to try to get both countries to be able to back off, because we do think that area of the world is important. And so the United States should be providing some kind of mediation. China has also called for both countries to back off. Qatar actually could also be helpful as well. I think that those countries, and the United States in particular, have to play a role here, because both Pakistan and India would respond if the United States got involved and said, you've got to stop, you've got to be able to back off of the kind of escalation that could lead to war in that region.
Do you think there is an appetite for that? And also, is there the bandwidth, given what we see, right, in terms of the number of global issues, if you will, that this administration is dealing with, under a president, too, who has made it clear that he wants to back off some of that global involvement and truly fulfill his vision of America first?
Well, that's a very fundamental question about whether or not the role of the United States is going to continue to be a world leader, or whether we're basically going to withdraw. The problem is in withdrawing, these dangers to our security are not going to disappear. And we are living at a dangerous time. We've got a war in Gaza. We've got a war in Ukraine. We've got conflicts both with Russia and China. We've got to worry about North Korea. We've got to worry about Iran. So there are a lot of areas of conflict in the world. I don't think the United States can run and hide from those conflicts. We have got to exercise some leadership, frankly, working with our allies to try to make sure that we can try to preserve the peace that the whole world needs as a result of these kinds of tensions. So my hope is that the United States will not back away. This is not a pretty please situation. This is a situation where you got to roll up your sleeves and actually engage with both India and Pakistan if you're going to be able to control these rising tensions.
Mr. Secretary, always appreciate your time and your insight. Thank you.
In Rawalpindi, about 10 miles from here, a lot of destruction around the main cricket stadium there. it's really rattling people here in Pakistan, and it's not really what the government, I think, was expecting. The drones have hit in Karachi in the south. In the deep south, somebody in the fields there was killed by a drone. 4 military personnel in Lahore, city of 13 million people, 13 miles from the border with India. 4 military personnel there injured when one of those drones got through. So you have strikes in the deep south, in the heartland in the middle, here in the north. It's that sense of unease now is creeping into the population that this is not the normal form of tit for tat. This is sort of beginning to be rolling conflict. And you have to add to that, Pakistan still hasn't done what it said it would do and have those revenge attacks for the Wednesday attacks.
India confirmed it targeted air defense systems in several locations throughout Pakistan. The announcement marks the first time India has taken ownership for targeting Pakistani military installations as fears of a wider regional conflict continue to grow. With us now, CNN military analyst, retired U.S. Army Major General James Spider Marks, and geopolitics analyst and former editor of the Hindustan Times, Bobby Ghosh. I think both of you, gentlemen, feel that each nation is looking for a way to declare victory and get out of this. But how they find a way to do that is the question here. And Spider, let me just start with you. From a military standpoint, what are we seeing on the ground right now?
John, I think what's going to happen next is Pakistan certainly reserves the right to respond and has indicated that they will respond. I think that's true, but I think it's going to be very measured. Look, the Pakistan military is not as, number one, as large and as professional as the Indian military. And I think there's some symbolism here. Pakistan, to its people, must respond in some way, irrespective of the ownership of the terrorist organization that Pakistan legitimately hosts inside its borders and conducted the raid into India a couple weeks ago and murdered 26 people. Pakistan will probably respond. It will go against targets that I think are known to both sides. Look, the Kashmir has been fought over and has been contested for decades. China also, bear in mind, has a dog in this fight because they share that border, that contested region. So I think what's going to happen is there will be a response. I think it'll be measured. And I think both sides will probably say, we've maintained our honor and we can walk away from this. Also, we need to see what both Beijing and the United States is doing in terms of trying to counsel those moves.
All right. I want to get to both those points with you, Bobby. First, what will it take for each side to walk away?
I think Spider put it best. But each side has to be able to say, we won something. Each side, through their propaganda arms, has to be able to convey to their own people that we're walking away with our honor intact. And we've seen this movie before. This has happened several times in this conflict, most recently in 2019. On that occasion, India struck back after a terrorist attack, hit several targets in Pakistan, but an Indian plane went down. The Pakistanis arrested the pilot and then returned the pilot home, and that was Pakistan saying, here's a gesture of magnanimity on our part. We're the bigger people here. And the Indians said, well, we were able to hit targets in Pakistan, so we've got what we wanted. That's what you need here. It would help to have a mediator to bring both sides to the table and allow them that opportunity. Right now, the most obvious mediator is a little bit out of it. The United States and the Trump administration has other problems.
Let's talk to me about that more.
Yeah.
What has been your impression of the United States, the statements and the level of involvement from the U.S. here?
Well, it's been very interesting. The difference is this time Trump's first response was, well, I hope they sort it out, which is very different from him. He usually likes to say, I'm going to go there and fix it. Or if they have me, I'll fix it like that. This time, his first response was, well, I hope this gets resolved quickly. Very passive. Now he's offering to go in there and mediate. That's different. The problem is we have no ambassadors. The Trump administration has really struggled to get ambassadors into India and Pakistan. And Trump himself clearly does not understand the nature of the conflict. He said yesterday, well, these countries have been fighting for centuries. These countries have not existed for centuries. They're 78 years old. There are old and long-standing grievances, but if you start from the assumption that, oh, these people have been fighting for centuries, that's not a good place for a mediator to start. A mediator has to understand what is at stake for both countries. He has to understand what each side is prepared to give and what each side needs to take in order to walk away from the table and declare victory. And it's not clear to me that the American president has that understanding of the situation.
Spider, what can go wrong here?
Well, both nations are nuclear armed. That's the primary concern. I mean, that's the bar over which we hope they cannot even get close to crossing. That's the big concern. Look, those are again, very professionally manned, and there are protocols around those. So I think we should be aware of that, probably not too concerned. But if Pakistan responds, and if then India responds, we're now into a cycle of action, reaction, counteraction, and that doesn't always have a good off-ramp.
And Bobby, it seems, I know there's an element, the word you used to me, the break, is kabuki theater to this, where India and Pakistan have gone through instances of this before. But it does feel as if the nations are pushing the boundaries maybe a little more than we've seen in the past.
Yes.
You know, the shooting out of 5 aircraft, allegedly, you know, shooting inside the borders exclusively. Are they pushing the boundaries of what could be kabuki theater?
They kind of have to each.
Off the top, we can make it clear that we want peace. Like all of us, right? Like we can all understand that there are children, there are innocent people, there are communities, there are lives built in every place in the world, and we want peace. But the American people elected the wrong man, and he is not the president for this time. Donald Trump is the anti-peace candidate, and simply having him in the White House with his lack of knowledge, his lack of experience, his lack of common sense, his lack of judgment, his lack of ego control and emotional control is not someone you want in the White House when there's a global conflict. Even if the U.S. isn't directly involved. For better or for worse, since 1945, the American president has always sort of been, you know, part of building a context where these conflicts don't get worse. And Donald isn't that guy. Remember, he was the pro-peace candidate. This did trick enough voters, unfortunately. It's like, oh, well, Trump's going to be the guy that brings peace to the Middle East, that brings peace all over the world, that brings peace between Russia and Ukraine. Of course that didn't happen. Of course it didn't happen. It was the opposite. Peace for Trump means letting his buddies, Netanyahu and Putin, run ramshot over people. He's the anti-peace candidate. And in that context of Trump's world, things are heating up. Because what has Donald made clear to countries all over the world? And what has he made clear to Americans, to everybody? He believes in might makes right. There's no due process. There's no international law. There's no common sense and decency. If you're strong, you can do it. If you can throw a man in a plane to El Salvador before a judge can officially stop you, whatever. If you can just take over a country and turn it into a luxury beach, whatever. If you can just take over a country and say it's yours in Eastern Europe, whatever. And so if you're India and Pakistan, and what's interesting is these are both powerful countries. They're both powerful. And both of them are saying, in the world of Donald Trump, might makes right. It's no surprise that Trump's world is leading to another war.